Hey guys, Dr. Justin Marcagiani here. Today's video is going to be on female hormone issues and histamine. We're going to dive into that topic. Before we do, please smash that like button. Helps the search algorithm. And love to see your guys' comments on the topic down below. So histamine issues, right? What's histamine? Histamine is essentially a neurotransmitter. It's produced essentially by basophils that are essentially mast cells outside of the bloodstream. In the tissue, they become mast cells that produce histamine. Inside the blood, you have basophils that can produce that histamine as well. And histamine can be produced or come into your body endogenously and exogenously. Exogenously means outside sources. So that could be histamine from food, whether it's high histamine in the food, like fermented foods, vinegars, fermented foods, like probiotic rich foods, or even like pepperoni, aged meats, bacon, those kind of things. You'll see a lot of citrus-based foods can be histamine releasing. Coffees and teas can be DAO blocking. That's the enzyme that actually breaks down histamine. So you can have it through food, whether it's actual histamine or the stimulating effect of histamine from the food, or the DAO blocking effect of the food. It can be from outside allergens like mold or environmental pollens, grasses, danders. If you're sensitive and you don't filter it out of your air or you don't flush it out of your sinuses, that could be another vector of histamine. And then also we have our gut bacteria, Citrobacter proteus, Citrobacter proteus, Klebsiella, Pseudomonas, Morganella, Prevotella. These are dysbiotic bacteria that could kind of fit into that SIBO umbrella. These bacteria can produce histamine. And so it's very possible that the gut imbalances can be driving off your histamine. It's very possible. That being said, hormonal imbalances can make your body more sensitive. So, for instance, progesterone can have a major impact on reducing histamine. Well, guess what? If you're a female and you're stressed and you have, let's say, PMS issues, estrogen dominant symptoms, breast pain, mood issues, anxious, irritable, depressed, back pain, breast tenderness, stomach or ovary cramping in that pubic area. These could all be signs of lower progesterone and estrogen dominance. And so low progesterone can have a major impact on histamine. Progesterone can be very stabilizing of the mast cells, and they can also make your body more resistant to histamine. So progesterone plays a very important role. Also, if you have adrenal stress, guess what? Your adrenals also need cortisol to help with stress and inflammation. And guess what? Progesterone is a precursor to cortisol. So when your progesterone is off, guess what? Cortisol is probably off as well, because a lot of times when you pull your progesterone downstream, it's usually going to be made into cortisol, right? So if you have low cortisol as well, that can also impact it. Because what if you have low progesterone and low cortisol? Well, now what, right? So if you have this adrenal dysfunction, some may call it adrenal fatigue. I like the word adrenal dysfunction, where you have that low DHEA sulfate, you have low cortisol, you may also have low progesterone. You're going to be more sensitive to histamine. You're going to have more histamine problems. So the histamine in your food may be a problem. Maybe the gut bacteria is pushing you over the limit. Maybe you have environmental things, mold, allergens. Maybe you're not keeping your environment clean. Maybe it's too moist. The moisture is too high. The humidity is too high. And you're not having good, at least HEPA, VOC filters in your environment to keep things clean. These are all definite concerns of driving and, let's say, filling up your histamine bucket. So some people genetically have this bucket, right? Some people's bucket's bigger or smaller. And the bigger your bucket is, the more histamines from other sources that you can tolerate. The smaller it is, those histamines come in from the different sources I mentioned. And when that histamine overflows, that's where symptoms start. The brain fog, the fatigue, the skin, the rashes, the irritation, maybe the migraine headaches, maybe the sleep issues, right? Cognitive mood stuff. These can all be histamine vector. And so you got to look deep at everything and say, where is that histamine coming from? One, is it histamine? Because sometimes you could just have inflammation from different food allergens. We know gluten in certain studies can impact blood flow up the carotid arteries to the brain. And we've seen in some studies that you'll see decreased blood flow when you consume gluten. Sometimes it can be just that gut permeability, right? Those tight junctions open up. These undigested foods and bacteria, lipopolysaccharides, endotoxins, gluten peptides, casein, morphin peptides get in that bloodstream, and that can sometimes create an inflammatory response that can create inflammation and create an immune stressor, and that could feel like histamine. There could even be some collateral histamine production from that. So you got to look at things holistically. You could have bugs, you could have some die-off from the bugs because of the biotoxins being produced by them, and your body's having to process them. It could be the fact that you just have really crummy digestion, you're not breaking down proteins and fats, And those proteins are really important for your detoxification system, for N-acetylation, glucuronidation, making those glutathione building blocks so you can detoxify. It's possible. All those things are very possible. So I just want to urge you guys to look here a little bit holistically and think about histamine problems also being connected to female hormones, and female hormones being connected to stress. So the more stressed we are, especially if you're amenorrhea, if you have amenorrhea, you know your progesterone's low because you need to have a cycle to make progesterone. To have a cycle, you have this follicle grows, an egg comes out, then you start to make estradiol from that egg, and then from there you start to then surge LH, which then increases progesterone. And where estrogen peaks up and where progesterone rises, this is where you ovulate, and that starts the luteal phase. Follicular phase is the estrogen part, the luteal phase is the progesterone part. So you have to have an egg and ovulation release, and that's where your progesterone surges. If we don't have that complete cycle, because we're on birth control or because you are under such stress, calorie dieting, chronic stress, chronic inflammation, maybe you're over exercising, maybe you have an eating disorder. All these things could put your body in a state of stress where you're no longer having a cycle. And guess what happens to that progesterone? It goes down super low. And not only does progesterone help with histamine, right? It also is a GABA chloride channel opener. It opens those GABA chloride channels, has an incredible relaxation effect, so it can help with sleep, calming down, and buffering stress, and helping that amygdala kind of come down and relax from those sympathetic, stressful states. So really important there. Steve writes in, girls with PCOS seeing more histamine response too. Yeah, so PCOS, it's a little bit different, but you're typically with PCOS, you're surging insulin. So you have either insulin surges from reactive hypoglycemia, that's lots of carbs. Insulin surges, brings that blood sugar back down, but you're surging insulin, or insulin resistance, where blood sugar stays high and you're surging lots of insulin and your cells are becoming numb to it. That insulin causes women to increase their androgens. It upregulates an enzyme called 1720 lyase that takes their female hormones and converts it to more androgenic hormones. And then you can have ovarian cysts. You're going to get more sebaceous gland activity, more hair growth, more sebum, which will then feed the bacteria on their skin, causing cyst. That stress can also increase prolactin, which can then disrupt their cycle as well. So you can have more and more issues going on with that. Yeah, so that's why progesterone is very relaxing for women. Most will say, hey, do it at nighttime. It really helps relaxation. I do progesterone morning and night. I'll stack it up at night 100%. Only if women get very tired and very relaxed and very sleepy with it, then we'll do it all at nighttime. If not, we'll do a blend of a little bit in the morning as soon as they get up, a little bit at night as soon as they go to bed. I have them put it right on their nightstand, and we do sublingual progesterone. In my line, it's called Psycho Balance. Psycho, not psycho. My wife calls it psycho because it helps her not be as psycho, is more relaxed. And so we'll put it right on our nightstand, morning, night, and we'll start with a couple of drops. Usually a good dose in cycling women is between 50 and 100 milligrams. Most conventional OBs or functional OBs will go 100 to 300, which I think is just too high, right? I have a philosophical construct of using hormones. If I use them, it's bioidentical, plant-based, USP certified, and we're going to just fill in what the body's missing versus give your body everything it needs and then some, because we want your body to still do its job and make things. Now, that may change if you're menopausal and you don't have that hormonal output, or if you have autoimmune condition with Hashimoto's where that gland is no longer functioning because it's been attacked by the immune system and there's scarring. So it depends on the situation, but I always want to give the body what it needs and help it over the top. It's kind of like my kid when he learned to bike just a couple months ago. We give him the tricycles, pull him out, give him a little bump, and then he does the rest on his own while I give him a little help. It's kind of like I'm the little bit of hormone filling in that gap, if that makes sense. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, let me know in the comments. If you have hormonal issues and or histamine issues, you want to dive in deeper, let me know. A lot of doctors will only look at the hormones when they have hormones. They won't look at hormones, gut, thyroid, detox, digestion, stress, sleep. I want to look at everything holistically so we can really get to the root of what's happening. All right, guys, coordinates down below if you want to reach out to my team. Have a phenomenal day, guys. Make sure you subscribe and share with friends and family. Take care.